Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing tonight?
Yo, what up, ladies and gentlemen? This your man, Melvin Taylor II, right here with the alternative on WHCR 90.3 FM, New York, the voice of Harlem. Man, how y'all been, bro? It's been a good week. It's good to be back here on the radio with y'all one more time. The weather in New York is finally, nice consistently, so that's kind of good as well, man. And, we just got to have a lot of fun. Also, yesterday was Biggie's birthday, since it's technically Tuesday. At this point in time, yesterday was Biggie's birthday, so of course we had to start off the show. One of my favorite Biggie songs, "Sky's the Limit." That beat just so incredible. Shout out to I'm forgetting the white dude's name, the same Blue Flame, and also sang dun 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 dun. He the one that sample. You got that sample from his record. I'm gonna find Bobby Caldwell. Thank you so much. The same white dude that every year more and more black people get surprised that he's actually white. I don't know how it keeps happening to everybody, but every single year it happens. Nonetheless, man. We back on the radio one more time, and today I got a very special guest, y'all. I got my homie. This man is this guy is just so incredible in everything that he does. One of LinkedIn's top voices. He writes for Forbes. He helped set up Complex Hustle, helped to set up Revolt. He's a teacher, can tell you how to interview correctly and also how to get your writing together, how to get your pen together, just basically how to get paid by being yourself. That's who he is.
Absolutely.
My man, Julian Mitchell.
Yo, what's going on, man?
How you doing, bro?
I'm doing well. It feels good to be here.
I'm glad to have you
it's
here,
good to
man.
see you in your element.
Oh, most definitely. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that. Yeah.
I appreciate the intro too. That was a very kind intro.
Oh, no problem. I'm trying to get to Sway's level where he go for 4-5 minutes and then eventually get there. So how's
focus
everything?
makes perfect.
There we go. How's everything been for you, man, lately?
Man, it's been good. I've been very inspired, very focused. I feel like I'm at a different level of focus. I feel like when you get to different spaces, you have new growing pains, new challenges, new things that you face.
Mm-hmm.
But then at the same time, the other side of that, I think you reach a new level of enlightenment, a new level of clarity, a new level of focus. So for me, it's been head down, a lot of work, a lot of grinding, a lot of, a lot of creating, obviously. And then a lot of just mapping out, what the next couple of years looks like what moves I want to make for the next, several years and things like that. So it's been a combination, man, a lot of reflection, a lot of, work, obviously, a lot of planning, a lot of just staying inspired, staying focused, and a lot of alone time. I get in these modes where I really roll solo and spend a lot of time with myself. So I'm in one of those seasons where it's just me, God, and my imagination right now.
Now, do you feel that
space.
moments like those are very important to kind of recenter yourself in a sense? Because it's in New York City or any big city in general, you can kind of get lost in what's going on around you type of thing.
Yeah, I never get lost in a city like New York. I'm not even concerned or affected by the things happening around me or things happening in the city. In fact, I'm a walker. I like to walk a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And a part of that is because I love feeling connected to the city. I love the energy of the city. I like all of the movement. I feel like, it creates a certain energy that when I'm in my mode, it's like a natural boost or just gives that jolt that makes you feel present and connected to everything that's going on when you spend so much time in your head and you spend so much time working and staying down and staying focused.
Right.
But I feel like it's very important. I think it's very important, less about recentering yourself and more about continuing an ongoing relationship with yourself. Because I feel like you have to be your own life coach, be your own friend, your own prayer partner, your own, Phil Jackson, really. So I think in all areas of your life, not just your career. So I think it's very important just to have check-ins with yourself, period, to go through phases where you're really evaluating what you like, what you don't like, how you can grow, how you can evolve, evaluate, your relationships, evaluate what you care about, what you value, what you're working towards, evaluate where your spirit's at, where your health is at, where your family's at. I think those are, where's your prayer life, where's your connection, to God and everything happening around you? Where are you with karma, the law of attraction?
Mm-hmm.
Like all these types of things I feel like should be an ongoing check-in and process that everybody has, So I think it's regardless of what city you're in, regardless of what you do or how you move, I just think that's, paramount for any individual who wants to consistently, get better and evolve and, just really continue to love yourself and trust yourself and go after what you want.
Now, I feel like this type of conversation is privileged in a sense because, and I'm not saying that you're coming from a privileged place. What I'm saying is that you kind of have to mature into having that type of mindset.
Yeah.
Now, when did it kind of first hit you that you were starting to really think on this type of level? Because a lot of people aren't really thinking about, I really need to be in tune with myself and continue to grow rather than the whole recentering type of thing.
Yeah, I think it's been an ongoing process. I feel like what sticks out to me was a moment of, I was probably 20 years old, 21, and I was battling with self-sabotage at the time, and it wasn't due to a lack of confidence or a lack of belief or anything like that. I think it was really more so having an attitude of you're always fighting something, or you're always, competing against something in yourself, or it's you against the world. You got a chip on your shoulder. And I always had that, up until that point, I always had that kind of mentality and spirit about myself, which was a gift and a curse. It was a gift because it gives you a sense of resilience and perseverance and drive and all of that, to be able to literally feel like you can't be defeated. Like in any circumstance, in any situation, you feel like you're always going to come out on top and you're always going to win, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's detrimental because you start to see your relationship to the world as you against the world. So you're defensive, you take things personal, you don't allow yourself to be fluid and really be at peace and really be happy and really accept all the things that you want for yourself and for your life. And so I got to a point where I was sabotaging a lot of things, and I had a really close friend of mine who stopped me one time and said, you are great at making relationships, but it was relationships in context, right? You're great at creating relationships, but you're horrible at keeping them. And she's like, it's your fault, right? Like that's on you. And that was a time where it stopped me in my tracks. I had like a couple of different experiences like that. This is the first one that jumps out.
Yeah.
But that experience was me having to take the most honest, sobering, clear look at exactly where I was at, how I was thinking, what I cared about, why, I was moving the way that I was, why I felt like, I hadn't accepted certain things that I deserve for myself. It's less about feeling like you deserve it. You have to accept that you do. And so I feel like I went back and wrote a list of every single person and every single situation that I felt like I had sabotaged or messed up or didn't understand, and resolved those situations and confronted them and was accountable for them. And then coming out of that was the first time I really felt like I really understood, where I was at and how I was thinking and all of that. And it allowed me to not just be a better person, but have real relationships and really understand like the value of those relationships, to really trust myself, to really believe in myself, to really know that the things that I want and desire and see for myself from every aspect of my life is truly attainable, and I can have it and I deserve it. And, like that sent me down a path, my spiritual life. It was like, okay, you're seeing this for a reason at this time. So be aware of the signs, like pay attention and know how everything is working together for the greater good, not to like come after you, but to make it an ongoing experience of lessons and realizations and evolution and things like that. So I feel like that sent me down a path at that particular time of just being a lot more self-reflective and being a lot more honest and real with the good, bad, and the ugly. You know what I'm saying? And for me, that situation put me in a space where I started saying things to myself like, yo, you know, you should really just spend time by yourself, like really get to know. You think you know yourself until you really spend time with yourself, and you know what I'm saying, and really hold that mirror up, and then you get to see it. So usually our relationships are based on how the world reacts to us, and how the world has a relationship to us, and we're more reactionary to the world, as opposed to really knowing ourselves. So I feel like that sent me down a path of doing that. And then when I saw how healthy that was, and how when you get in those spaces, you literally hear, you know, I'll say for myself, I hear God's voice. I hear my own voice. I hear what my spirit is saying and all of that. And so it's very clear and allows me to have a clear like line of communication internally to know what I feel and what moves to make and what I care about. And if I make mistakes, I know where it came from and how to check it and things like that.
Man, this some great conversation. Man, we only 20 minutes into this show.
I feel like I'm talking too much.
We already getting it. No, you good, bro. You good. You are.
That makes sense though, right?
Yes, it does. Okay, cool. Completely makes sense. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian is not going anywhere. We will get into some more of this talk right after these next few songs. Remember, this is The Alternative with Melvin Taylor. I don't go nowhere. Southside by Lil Baby coming up right now.
Southside on the track, yeah.
Southside.
That right there, Louboutin, This and That by D Brooks exclusive, Valley, Katie Young, Cocky, and King Louis. Now, we get back to the other song that I was just playing. It's called Runway by my man Young Paris. All right, don't go nowhere. It's The Alternative. Yo, ladies and gentlemen, we are back one more time with The Alternative. Got my man Julian Mitchell here in studio, and we just having a grand old time talking about everything. Grand old time. I sound like an old dude. Let me take that back. We having a good time here talking about everything. We're having a grand old time. Can you pass the Grey Poupon, please?
Yes.
So Jay, for a lot of people that don't know out there, like I said before, Jay writes for Forbes Magazine, and
3 years.
For the past 3 years, everything he drops, like you don't want to miss anything that goes on. I specifically go to his IG story just to be like, all right, what did he drop today? Or if I'm running late from work, I'm like, all right, let me just get to work and then just pull up my Forbes tab and then just go right to his page to see what he got coming up. Tell us what you got coming, or what you just recently, you put something out today, yesterday?
Monday, I put out a story on Sovereign Brand CEO Brett Barish and how he built his self-made spirits empire. Brett runs a company, Sovereign Brands, which is a portfolio of like spirits brands across categories. So Brett and his team, before creating Bel Air, which people first widely knew through Rick Ross and the Black Bottle Boys, and DJ Khaled. That's how a lot of people first got familiar with the Bel Air brand. But prior to Bel Air, he and his team created Ace of Spades, and Ace of Spades famously sold, of course, to Jay-Z in 2014. And then he and his team also created Douce Cognac, which Jay-Z also which is part owner now. It's operated by Bacardi Limited. And so they've been a business, family owned and operated since 1999, completely independent, not bought out by a major player.
That's what's up. They
created Bel Air. Bel Air's the bottles have become a symbol of self-made success for artists across the industry. And so it's telling a lot of his story. They also created Bumbu Rum, which is they call it the world's most decorated rum because it's won the most awards of any rum in history. And now Bel Air Rosé that they have, which a lot of people are familiar with in the black bottle, is actually the top-selling French rosé out of the U.S. So they're just a really small boutique shop that just creates really impactful global spirits brands. Brett is a great guy. If people have watched the story, watched the series, we've developed together. So we started almost a year ago now, crazy enough. developing the self-made concept and platform, and which started as a video series where artists would share their self-made stories, and Brett would sit down with them.
Was that okay? That was him that would sit down with them.
Yeah, that's Brett who sits down with the different artists in the video.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I also sit with the artists and speak with the artists and get the mechanics. So it's called The Art of Being Self-Made. And so those are the conversations we have with everybody. And we've covered Ross, Khaled, Davies, A Boogie with the Hoodie, Steve Aoki, Diamond Platinums, Post Malone.
Everybody's popping right now, basically.
Just a ton of people. Russ, Rhapsody, just a bunch of different people, and Nipsey Hussle, which is one of my favorite ones.
Yes, sir. One of my favorites as well. Shout out to Victory Lap.
So they've just really owned the space and the mantra of self-made, and the concept of self-made tastes better. So that's really getting into his story, his principles, how he built his business, and there's a lot of gems in that. And then tomorrow, or today rather, now being Tuesday, I have a story dropping on a duo who developed a multi-level curriculum for people of all ages to really learn financial literacy, because we understand that that's not taught enough in schools. People get caught up in debt and damage their credit, and instead of being able to confidently just go after their dreams and aspire for things, they get bound by finances, and they find themselves barely being able to get to college or stay in a career or take care of their family. So they develop different programs at each level. So one's called Pockets Change, which is for younger kids to really learn the basics and the fundamentals. And then another one is called Brunch and Budget, where they get like people our age, more out of college, young adults, people who are in their careers. Yeah. They sit with them and teach them planning and set goals and things like that. And then they work with them one-on-one. And then they have one that's called the Dead Day Job Army, which is specifically for people of color, because, obviously we notice differences in our backgrounds and how we have a relationship with finances. So they developed a curriculum specifically for people of color that also gets into the systematic issues economically, that, predatory loans and, how to actually rebuild your credit, and the fundamentals of debt, and how, certain things happen. And so it's a story on them and the things that they've built. And then Wednesday here in the city, I have the live talk with Jamel Hill, which will be really dope. 6:30 in New York City. So I'm excited about that. And Jamel Hill is just a fearless, bold voice in the space. So I'm excited to talk to her about how she built her platform and used her voice. So
most
excited
definitely
about that.
And I believe she just got, I want to say today, I saw on Twitter that she was nominated or won like NABJ Journalist of the Year.
Yeah, she was Journalist of the Year. National Association of Black Journalists awarded her that.
The Wednesday is going to be popping for sure.
Shout out to Jamil Hill.
Tickets all through Driven Society, correct?
Yeah, which is actually closed, but you can go to the RSVP page, or you can follow Driven Society on Instagram, on Twitter, and see the updates. For sure.
Okay, bet. So there will be some way, shape, and form, ladies and gentlemen, that you all can get this premium content.
Yeah, and usually, so this is not Get Paid to Be Yourself event, which are usually the bigger live talks that I have. So this is a very specific, intimate event. So it'll only be about 50 to 70 people there, so it should be a really
very intimate compared to
intimate conversation.
I was gonna say compared to one of your favorite Get Paid to Be Yourself events that I got to see through video. The one you did with Dame Dash.
Oh, that was incredible.
Was awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, can you just tell us a little bit about that, and then just kind of go into a bit more about Get Paid to Be Yourself for those who don't know?
Yeah, man, absolutely. The Get Paid to Be Yourself live talk with Dame Dash was really a moment culturally, for real, because Dame is somebody what made me really believe and know that it was the right time to have a conversation with Dame Dash is, this a lot about me. I've been talking about a lot of these different principles and things for a while now when it comes to, how to navigate your career, understanding your value, leveraging that value, like owning your time, owning things like that. Yeah. And, when we look in an era where you have the Gary V's and people of the world who are capitalizing off of this new wave of independence and entrepreneurship and building your own businesses and brands, you had people like Dame who at a time, in large part, was scrutinized and ridiculed because he had the same beliefs in a time where that just was so unheard of.
It was so foreign to some people.
Absolutely. So he was ready to tell his story, and the last interview he really did was The Breakfast Club, which everybody knows about, that interview. So I wrote the story. We sat down, we did the interview, which was a great conversation. A lot of people took a lot of gems away from Dame and what he said. He's the definition of disruption. Yeah. And then, we brought it to life, and it was in LA in front of probably 350, 400 people, creators. And we just had a great conversation. He clarified a lot of things too. Out of that conversation, you had people like Charlemagne and Steve Stout and other people who, for years, in some point, in some way, had been maybe at odds or hadn't really, understood his message. Yeah. Say, yo, I get it now. I understand it. Yeah, like, I applaud you and I respect what you've represented and what you've done. So that conversation was to, one, really contextualize the message that he was championing years ago that has to what he said in his credit of, you've produced a Jay-Z, a Kevin Hart, a Kanye West, and all these people, and, giving them that mentality and the mindset to be their own boss and, build their own stuff up, contextualizing that for this generation, and then also being able to put him in his proper context culturally, and set it straight. Like, you can say what you want about him, you can say what you want about him and Jay or whatever, but that man has a ton of wisdom to offer, and that's really what Get Paid to Be Yourself is about. It's about, it's not about teaching people how to be entrepreneurs. It's not about teaching people how to be socialites or get paid on Instagram or any of that type of stuff. Get Paid to Be Yourself is really about getting people to see that they're enough, right? Like, your value, your perspective, your multitude of talents combined are enough to create the space you want, to design the kind of careers you want, to do. No, but for real, but to really be able to do that. Like, we're in a time where, the person with the information has the power, right? Like, that doesn't necessarily mean the degree or the training or the background. It doesn't necessarily mean, this person, that person. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to play by the politics and do it like this and do it like that. We're in a time where we are the people we looked up to. Like, we are the ones in position to design what the new rules look like for our generation and the generation to come. The old. So, like, when you look at it like that, it's getting people to change their relationship to the work that they do, change the way that they look at their value and how much leverage they have. One thing Nipsey said in our interview that stuck out to me is he's like, we've been being leveraged, so you have to have the mentality now that if you're not leveraging, you're being leveraged. So having that mentality, it's giving people the insight, the tools, the tips, the blueprint from people who have done it and telling stories through them to be able to really develop, a true proven way of thinking and way of moving that allows people to really get paid to be who they are and build careers and businesses that are rooted in what they're passionate about without compromising who they are, what they feel their mission is, and what they ultimately, want to accomplish. So it started 3 years ago as a Forbes column where I was highlighting different creators, entrepreneurs, and people who've built these multifaceted careers. And then 20 installments of the editorial later, it's evolved into workshops. So I've traveled everywhere from London and New York to Mississippi to DC to all over, teaching and showing, people that it's more than just, it applies to you too. It applies, to everybody and what that looks like. And then that evolved into the live conversation series where I've sat down one-on-one with Ryan Leslie, Rob Stone, Lena Waithe, Mondo Fresco, Dame, and others. So it's a editorial series to give people the way of thinking and more of the philosophy. It's a workshop to teach people the tools and the mechanics. And then it's a live conversation so people can show up and experience it and see it firsthand and be able to interact with people who have done it.
Bet, man. Ladies and gentlemen, please make sure to go check out everything that Julian has. All Things Mitch is your social media, correct?
Correct.
Correct. All things Mitch. We're going to have some more coming up with Julian in just a little bit. Right now, we got to get into Summer Walker CPR. Don't go nowhere. It's The Alternative. We got all that music for you. Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back one more time with The Alternative. My man Julian Mitchell is here. No, you just said it so perfectly. I don't even want to mess it up. Can you just say it for me?
We just had a real conversation.
We just had a real. Oh my God.
Know the difference between an opportunity and a distraction.
Know the difference, man. Oh my, I can't even.
Because some things look like an opportunity, but they're really just distracting you from the reality, which is actually greater than the opportunity.
Man, I told y'all, this man is just like a walking gym machine right here. He got all the keys. DJ Khaled was talking about this man right here. Now I do want to talk about shout out to Khaled. Something that's not a distraction, that it is an opportunity that you got going on this week. Talk about this contest that you got going for everybody out there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, man. I'm excited about it. It's called the Platform Project. The Platform Project. The idea started because through social media, LinkedIn, all these different channels, people reach out for a lot of different things, primarily three things. They either, of course, want exposure, or they want to be featured on a platform, which obviously, I don't feature everybody. It's not that type of thing. So I get a lot of people who inquire about exposure. Then I get a lot of people who really respect my work and the quality of it, and they reach out because they want to get better, or they want to receive my help or have me look at certain things. And then at the same time, there are people who just generally want to have access. They want to ask me questions. They want to have that more of kind of like a consulting / mentorship type of relationship. So when I looked at the three things, I said, what's something that could really address and provide people all three, but still be something that's fun, that's ongoing, that's really a program that can develop, other talent and allow me to see people's ideas and see what people are working on to be able to potentially help them. So out of that came the Platform Project, with the idea of giving creators a platform, giving them insight, access, and exposure. It's a raffle. So you buy a raffle ticket. Raffle tickets are only $50. Buy a raffle ticket. You enter in. 3 finalists are selected. When you get your ticket, you send me a submission, a blurb about what the idea is, what your company is, what you're working on, and what you need help with. It's kind of like just your brief of what you're working with. From there, I pick 3 finalists. From those 3 finalists, randomly select one. The winner gets to work with me one-on-one for a month directly to develop that idea. Then at the same time, they get access, like I said, to reach out, ask questions, get guidance. And at the end of it, I write a feature on them through my Forbes platform. And it highlights their project and also highlights their process of getting it done. And then it's going to be ongoing every month from now forward. So the first one we've got a really solid response. I've received a really solid response, and I did it kind of like boom, just to see what the response would be.
Test the waters a little bit.
Yeah, so I did it pretty quick. I didn't give it a lot of lead time. So we've had a really good amount of responses. So the 24th is when I will pick the 3 finalists, and then they'll be chosen. And then the end of the month is when I will announce the winner. June 1st, I'll announce the winner. And then from there, that's when the month will start. So
the next cycle will
exactly. And I'll be working with that person through that cycle to the end of the month to get that project developed and then ultimately write the story on them. So that's the Platform Project. And then also in the same token, a lot of people comment on my interview style, or, they like the way I interview, the way I ask questions, the answers that I get from people. When they see me live, they like the way people open up and things like that. So I know how much I studied the greats and how much I watch Zane Lowe and how much I do all of that and just how much I work on my craft, like, you know what I'm saying? So I've picked up a lot and I've learned a lot. And so I also created what will be a course called The Art of Interviewing.
Right.
And that's going to be all about really getting into the mechanics of, preparing for, planning, and executing a great interview, from the questions to how you prep to things to look out for, little tips and tricks to actually getting the responses, transcribing, producing a story, contextualizing it, like all the pieces to just make a really, great interview. I'm going to start with live classes in different cities, so like LA and New York, and then with about 25 to 50 seats. And then I'm going to open it up and make it a webinar where everybody can have access to it, to really help just multimedia journalists who want to perfect their craft and tell stories. It'll be something to help them.
Now, man, that sounds so great. Please, everybody, make sure you go and search All Things Mitch, MITCH, so that way you can find everything that Julian is working on, because all this is just incredible.
And
man.
Gumroad, man, gumroad.com / All Things Mitch. You can find the platform project. Or if you follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you'll see the link in my bio to actually get the tickets. So I'm really excited about that.
Okay, man. It should be. I was gonna ask. So since all the since everybody's pouring in right now and submitting for it, I'm sure you've seen some pitches so far that have been like pretty top tier. You don't have to talk anything.
I don't want to say it.
Yeah, you can't. Okay, all right, cool.
I don't want to disclose them, but I have seen some really interesting pitches. And the cool thing about it is, so I opened it up for editorial, video, and social. So you could be doing a editorial project, a video project, social media project. And I've seen pitches from people that literally go from somebody who has a tech startup to somebody who's writing an essay, somebody who's trying to develop a novel, somebody who's trying to develop a series, somebody who's trying to build out a social campaign around their personal brand. Like, I've seen a lot of variation so far, which I think is really dope, because you just see the different ideas and the diversity of things that people are into, and the different ways that I can, help different people.
Agree. You get to tap into everybody in a sense to be like, all right, what's really going on out here, and see from a bottom up perspective of what's happening.
Right.
Man, so I just want to talk into a bit more about just kind of your experiences overall.
Yep.
For some folks out there that don't know, like, how did he get to writing for Forbes, and how did he start doing stuff for Revolt? And oh my God, I see him in all the Beats by Dre stuff and everything too, and we can't forget Complex Hustle as well. Yeah. So when did your entire media career first start, for those that don't know?
Oh my God.
We going back. Let's get it.
Yeah, man, it was crazy. I always like to say it started as a kid, in terms of just how immersed in media I was at the time. Like, as a kid, growing up with my grandmother, like not having my parents, it was, hours listening to the radio, watching, videos on TV. Yeah. Then as I got older, it was, seeing all the legacy magazines, XXL, Vibe, and all of that. Like, culture was in media. That's really the only way you had access to it. That's the only way you really experienced it, outside of what you experienced day to day. And so those were things that I was always just immersed in, remembering the lyrics to songs and just getting obsessed with flipping through magazines, things like that. So I always kind of had this passion that was developing as I got older, not really knowing what it was going to turn into. Right. And then when I was in high school, I'll breeze through this part. When I was in high school, I was a freshman, and I had a journalism teacher who, for some odd reason, when we would do creative writing, he was like, "You're a genius. You need to be the editor of the paper." So he just made me the sports editor of the paper. I had never done it in my life.
You come over here.
No, literally. And I remember we had an open house, and he said at the open house, he was like, "Julian's a genius." And I was like, "This dude sounds nuts."
Like, what are you talking about, bro?
Yeah, I didn't know what he meant. And so he made me the sports editor. And I remember I used to go around covering all the sporting events as a freshman and like running the whole sports section. And then that evolved into, through high school, I would write for the paper. I would go to the different summits, and I would always get picked to write the pieces for like the Las Vegas Sun or Las Vegas Review Journal, like recapping the pieces. Yeah. And then when I got into college is where everything really took shape. So I went to Occidental College in Los Angeles.
There we go.
And when I went to Oxy, my professor, rest in peace to the great Roger Boucher, Obama and I had the same academic advisor in college. And
now that's why
crazy.
I'm gonna need you to say that one more time for people that missed that. Just pay attention to what Julian got to say.
Barack Obama and I had the same academic advisor in college. When I came into Oxy, I really wanted to be in either politics or econ because that's what smart black people who don't come from shit do. Don't have anything do. So when I got to college, I had this elaborate plan when I met with him, and he basically was like, yeah, everything you're saying, I believe you can do it. I'm confident, but you have ideas and you have an imagination, and if you can master the ability to communicate those ideas and communicate your thoughts and what you want to say, there's no industry you can't conquer. There's nothing you can't do. And long story short, I became an English major in college, and that was a mixture between like reading pre-1800s, also reading like Cornel West and James Baldwin and Franz Fanon and all this kind of stuff, while also, of course, being a huge music head. So I'm listening to Jay and listening to Nas and listening to all these people. And so like all this literature and stuff and music and everything's like floating in my head. So as I became a better writer in college, like just through the craft of like having professors who just beat it out of me and like forced me to really understand the power of my writing. Shout out to Professor Foreman. All the worlds started to collide, where my perspective on society and music and culture was met with this intense training that I was undergoing to perfect my writing, which was met with this passion to tell stories and share my point of view and do all of that. So those things started coming together. So I was the event director of the college, ran the radio station, wrote at the paper, was interning at the record label, trying to get my friend signed, was interning at Debbie Allen. I was just like throw myself in it.
Yeah.
And the fast forward to that of how it all got started, taking all of that, I had a guy who said basically, all the stuff you're doing, people get paid a lot of money and you can actually make a career out of that. And I was like, what do you mean? He said, yeah, people get paid a lot of money to do the things that you do. And when I got out of college, the one thing I hadn't done was go to New York and be an editor of a magazine. And so I moved on a whim to New York, no job, no nothing.
Just was like I'm finna make it happen.
Literally, I booked a ticket and got rid of everything. And 2 weeks later, I was on a plane. And when I got to New York, I took over a website that was called Multitude New York at the time. And was like, yo, I'll do this marketing internship for free if you let me run this like an editor-in-chief. And so basically I would work all day at Bloomingdale's on 59th Street. Shout out to Bloomingdale's. And I would work at All Saints, the clothing company, to make money. And then I would run the streets of New York all night long. I did it nonstop for over a year. I just ran the streets and highlighted every dope creator, artist, art museum, everything that I saw. I would write about, and it got to a point where that site became known and respected, and people thought it was like a team who was doing it, and it was literally just me at a computer doing it. And that's when I first realized I could really do this writing media thing because I'm running a whole site, by myself. And then from there, I moved back to LA and ran into the same guy after an intense period of struggling. When I got back to LA, I ran into the same guy who told me, yo, you can make a career. And literally it was almost like it picked back up. He said, yo, I ran into him randomly. He said, yo, you still doing all of that? And I was like, yeah. He's like, yo, we should start a company. I was like, what's that look like? That company became the digital agency Quantity, which is where I started in advertising. That's where my career really started. And it went from not knowing anything about advertising to creating campaigns and content for brands like, Honda and Wells Fargo and Google and Magic Johnson and all these different places, and launching platforms. And, I was doing everything because I was doing the social media. I was concepting the platforms, concepting the campaigns, writing the commercials, doing all this type of stuff. And from there, in that space, being kind of this utility player who was also teaching CMOs about culture and teaching advertisers about content and culture, is at the same time where Puff got Revolt. and he had just got the deal, and he had basically a chief digital advisor at the time who was like, yo, he really, wants to meet with you, and, he has this idea for a network. He wants to be the first one built social by design. And I went with him to, really build up and launch Revolt as social media director. And that was building everything from we're working on the mission statement, the first 500 tweets, the value system, what the website looked like, who were the first hires in New York and LA, what was it was literally from the ground up. We didn't even have trash cans in the office. It was crazy.
I remember because I watched a little bit of a story where you were doing an interview, and it was like you had just got off the plane, had to put your stuff down, go right into a meeting, walk into the meeting room, everybody's packed in there. Yeah. And they basically turned to you to be like, all right, so what we doing with this? What we doing with this? What we doing with this?
Nah, literally. Yeah. It was just getting started, not too long after getting started. Puff had this thing where he was he took it so serious that, and my job was to launch the channel. I was a social media director. Revolt was launching in social media first. It was launching digital first, social by design. So the hot seat was on me. And when I came in, I was the youngest, executive in the mix. I was the young dude. I was the cat who didn't come from TV, who didn't have the background. And I'm surrounded by cats who spent 10 years at MTV, 20 years in all these places. So I'm the kid coming in okay. But I came in to get busy, so I was like, let's go.
Let's get it running.
So I put a spark in that joint. But at the same time, Puff, like I said, was very serious. And when I started, he was one day he calls and basically he's like, I need you in New York. And I'm thinking okay, maybe in a couple days, a couple whatever. It's the same day. So book.
Hey, I got the flight already. Just go ahead. Here's
no, literally booked the flight. The car picked me up from my house. I went home, packed a bag. Car picked me up from my house. Took me to the airport. I get on a plane. I fly to New York. I don't know what's going on. I got my computer and stuff. I'm working on stuff, but I don't know what this is about to be about. I don't know what I'm walking into, because it's the first time I went to New York since being hired, right? Yeah. So, and at the time they had Rest in Peace to 1710 Broadway. That was the Bad Boy building. That was where everything went down.
Yeah,
right?
I used to work right there at 1700. So I walked past it. I seen them outside a few times. So
yeah, to the Bad Boy building, right? It's a legendary building. So I get off the plane. I get picked up by the car. The car takes me to the office. It's my first time at 1710. I get there because he basically was like, you need to be here for this meeting that's happening. Yeah. So I didn't even get to go check in my hotel or nothing.
No, it was right off the plane.
And I was staying at the Dream, which is right next to 1710.
It's right around the corner.
So he basically was like, bring your stuff and come upstairs. So I get there. I go straight in the elevator. Go to his floor, 6th floor, literally walk off, and all I see is he has this huge conference room, the door is cracked, and I'm walking in, and I still got my stuff. I set it down, open the door, and it's a meeting with everybody. And when I say everybody, I'm talking about staff, his friends, people who worked around him. It was a full house of people, and I remember walking in, and he was like Nino Brown in New Jack City. The way he was pacing around the table, everybody was sitting down. They had all these worksheets, and everybody had their computers out, and the screens was up, and the whole thing.
He just walking past and what?
And he does an introduction, basically introduces me who I am. Oh, this is Julian. Give it up for Julian. Hey, he's our young boy, social media director. Ooh. And basically was because him and I had talked about what the plan was, and I had shared stuff with him, so he put me on the spot. I was like, yeah, pull that up. Pull the stuff on the screen. He's like, all right, tell us what this is about to be. Tell us what's going on. And so I did. I had to basically just step in and do that. And then that meeting went on pretty much through the night and into the next day. And we were breaking out into sessions and all this kind of stuff. We had a lot of different people there that we were working with. And I remember creating different presentations and takeaways and packets from every single breakout session, every single meeting. Shout out to Neil Dominique, because
Shout out to Neil Dominique.
like I said, I was responsible for building all the architecture and creating all this stuff. So I would spend all my days at the top in the cubicles, like on the top floor where the interns were, and I would just be in there all night, like working on stuff. And then I'd go to FedEx and get it bound and printed out, and because he would just call and be like, meet me here, and I'd meet him there, and then have to present it to him in his car, present it to him at a restaurant, present it to him wherever. You just never knew, so you always had to be prepared. And I always picked up on certain cues too, where I would hear certain things and be like, okay, that means I need to go create that or do that or bring that back or show him this or do that.
Right.
So that went on for almost a month. I was supposed to be in New York for a week. I was in New York for almost a month. And he was like, yo, I need to know how you think, how you move, what you like. Like, if this is my baby. Like, I'm trusting you with my baby. I need to know that I can trust you with this. So it was like boot camp for a month in New York City, and I was bouncing around hotels. I was at the Hudson, the Dream, the everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember at the end of it, walking him through the last one, and he was like, it was in the middle of the night too, and he was like, I finally feel comfortable. Like, I finally feel like good, and I can trust you, and I like how this is working. And that's when I got sent home. I remember coming out the subway at 59th Street. I remember. Nah, he hit me and was like, after all that boot camp, he was like, because it literally started from that moment of getting off the plane, and it did not stop for almost a month. And at the end of it, I was tired. I had a young son back at home. I'm like, yo, I need to get back to my son. Yeah. I told him that, like, yo, I got to get back to my son. And he was like, yo, you know, I appreciate all your hard work and everything you put in. Like, ooh. He's like, I feel good, you know, let me know if you need anything. I was like, I need you to just trust that I got this. I need you to fall back and let me do me. Yeah. And he was like, all right. And then at that point, he really let me, like, do my thing. But from that moment I got off the plane to the month that followed, it was nonstop boot camp, nonstop work. I was falling asleep at the Starbucks. I was falling asleep in meetings. We were still having Revolt meetings and calls, and it was like boot camp for a month.
Yeah, it was legit, man. Listen, we're going to get into some more Julian stories. I also want to hear his craziest Diddy story that he has in a moment. But right now, we're going to go ahead back to the music. This one that Julian asked for, Keep You in Mind by Mr. Banks.
Gordon Banks.
Yes, sir. We're going to get right into it. The Alternative with Melvin Taylor. Don't go nowhere. Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your man, Melvin Taylor Jr., right here back on The Alternative. I got my man, Julian Mitchell, here as well, still chopping it up. So real quick, can you just give us the quick run-through, because I want to get to some of these cool stories that you got, any of the ones that you can share, and then we'll hop into some more music before we get up out of here. But, yeah, just give us the quick chop version, as you said, of how you got through.
Yeah, man. So I started out – it really significantly started out in advertising. I worked at Quantity.
Right.
I started out literally at the bottom when I first got in. I was brand new, and then worked my way up to being the director, content director, and was creating campaigns and content, commercials, and all kinds of stuff for different brands. It's like a list I could go through. So I started in advertising, then I went from advertising to Revolt to launch the network, and was there a little over 2 years. Was social media director, then editorial director. So it was really leading the conversations and all the content and what we were doing on social media, but also like running the editorial, writing the stories, managing the site, managing the stories that other, writers and stuff were doing. And then from there, I started writing about the business, because I realized, as a young person who didn't necessarily have the conventional background in both industries, advertising and television, there was a perspective I had that was an advantage, and there was a lot of stuff that I saw that I felt like other people could learn from. So I started writing about the business on LinkedIn, and at the same time, I'm writing about music and everything else. And then Zach Greenberg, who is the editor at Forbes. Shout out to Zach, who writes like
Zach.
Cash Kings and all of that. Like, he's the guy you see. He did an interview on me for a story with a few of my colleagues about being Sean Combs' Revolt recruits. He did like a Forbes story on it.
Okay, bet.
And when he saw me then, fast forward later, I wrote a story called Grind versus Hustle, like the guide to telling the difference. And he read it and was like, reached and he said, "Hey, this is amazing. We don't have this type of perspective. Would you want to continuously write for Forbes about this type of stuff?" And I instantly had a story about Kendrick, published that story about Kendrick, and it's been 3 years and some change ever since with Forbes. So I started out music, media, entertainment for a year and a half, and then the past year and a half it's been covering entrepreneurs and startups. Then I spent a year and a half at HuffPost, writing a column under the Black Voices vertical, just talking about everything that's going on in the world and in society. Spent 3 years with Media Bistro as an instructor, teaching brand writing, social media, content marketing. And so then out of those experiences, I went, worked back at the agency for a minute too, like still launching platforms and things like that.
Yeah.
And then went and joined Complex 2 to launch Complex Hustle. So it was their first channel for entrepreneurs or hustlers. So that was a great experience, being the EP, the supervising producer for that channel. And from there, after launching that, went into, of course, like consulting, working with different brands to develop platforms, to develop, different content and things like that. And then founded a company, which I have now, which is IQ Labs. And so that's media, education, and partnerships. And in that process, I was the first writer signed to Beats by Dre. So that was amazing. And we collaborated on a partnership. And for me as a writer, and created Corner Office, which is a series I have now that profiles entrepreneur CEOs who sit at the intersection of like music, culture, lifestyle. And so we're about 7 installments deep into that, and that's continuing to evolve. And then the Artist Self-Made and things like that. So now I have my own classes, my own workshops, my own curriculums, things like that. And still have Forbes, have Beats, still do live talks and teach. So that's,
man, talk about getting paid to be yourself with Julian Mitchell, who just does everything so well, so effortlessly, and it's just threading us through his journey and how he basically just matured into this guy he is today. It didn't happen overnight for anybody that's out there like, yo, I want to do it tomorrow. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. A lot of rock bottoms, a lot of struggles, a lot of believing when nobody believes, a lot of reminding yourself, a lot of you got to silence the noise, you got to become bulletproof to the shots, to everything that comes. You got to there's a lot that comes with it. Like, if you can't handle everybody talks about prosperity, but they do not talk about the pain that you have to go to get to the prosperity.
Yeah.
Like, if you can't endure pain, success at the level you think you want is not for you. If you can't go through moments of feeling like you want to quit or you want to give up, even and not give up because you don't believe in yourself, but because you literally feel beat. Like, you don't feel like if you can keep going, like, but you still keep going and you still get up. Like, if you ain't built for it, then you don't really want it. Because when you accept that and you go through it, that's what unlocks the door that allows you to actually
go and
get to it. Because hard work is one part, endurance is one part, and it's all a part of it. So it's never, anybody who knows me, if you ask them, they will tell you some crazy stories, like all the miles I had to walk.
Man,
miles I had to walk,
literally
the phones
miles
that got cut off, the couches I slept on.
I remember hearing that story, being like, "Yo, this man is crazy." But that's why this man is in this position. Miles.
I
miles
you
walk,
bro.
Yeah. This ain't
man.
a game, ladies and gentlemen. Remember, this is The Alternative with your man, Melvin Taylor. I got my guest, Julian Mitchell, here today. Now, before we get into what are some of his craziest stories that he's just seen, some of the just celebrity stories that people just going to be in tune with, one to definitely hear. I hope you got some of those queued up for us. In the meantime, we're going to play a few more songs so we end up getting up out of here and roll everything on out. Remember, it's The Alternative with your man, Melvin Taylor. while I get all of that together, we're going to go ahead and throw it back to Chicago one more time. Shout out to my homies, D Brooks Exclusive, Katie Young, Cocky, Valley, and King Louie on this one called This and That. Don't go nowhere. This is The Alternative. Yo, what's up, ladies and gentlemen? It's your man, Melvin Taylor Jr., back one more time on the ones and twos. Remember, this is The Alternative. Melvin Taylor, I don't go anywhere. Got my man, Julian Mitchell here.
Yep.
Got a couple more minutes left before we got to end up wrapping this part of the show. So before we get up out of there, first, remember, you can find Julian, All Things Mitch.
Correct.
ALL Things, and then MITCH.
Yes, sir.
Also, you said it was Gumroad.
We are in Harlem.
We are in Harlem.
Money Mitch. Shout out to the
you gotta do it one time. Why not?
Yeah, Gumroad. Gumroad.com/all-things-Mitch.
There you go. You got that one. You got the make sure to enter the contest so that way if any of y'all got some
Platform
real good
project.
ideas out there. Platform project. Everybody can go ahead and submit that. And then in addition, please continue to check out everything that my man has on Forbes. Nothing but gems dropping. Now,
Yes.
I want to hear about just some of these, give the folks some entertaining stuff. Not saying anything you haven't been saying hasn't been entertaining, but I just want to see, some people get to be around, people like Diddy and just only see something that's like, that's something that Diddy would do. Like, just.
Oh, nah, I can't. I'm not
just,
gonna
you can't give me nothing too deep, but I just want to know what's like. You ain't even got
ask
to name
me a
celebrity.
question.
Ask you a question.
Ask me, something specific because I can't think of anything.
Okay, anything specific.
Something,
So
something I might have
what's
seen.
been like? We know that. All right, let me start off with Diddy because he's come up a lot in this interview. Then what? We know Diddy for being like himself and being supercharged and hype and being like, yo, I really want this. I want it. All of that.
Of course.
Have you ever been in the office during one of those moments at those specific points in time that you can talk about?
Yeah, I mean, him and I have had shower matches.
Okay.
We had a shower match. I'll never forget. Lupe was doing a show. I can't remember what city it was.
Okay. So
I sent a writer to cover the show. The writer covers the show. Apparently, Lupe phoned it in. It was a bad show, and I think he left early.
Oh.
And the writer was like, basically wrote a story saying, hey, it was trash. He phoned it in. Ooh. I saw the story. I approved the story, ran the story. And all of a sudden, when we put the story out, Lupe is flaming at us on Twitter. I'm talking about flaming at us, going hard.
I was gonna say, Lupe holds no prisoners. When it
was
to that.
bad. If anybody follows Lupe, he's like Talib. Those are like the two rap trolls that go hard on everybody. So Lupe's in one of his rap rants, and he's going in about the show. Like, he's trying to explain it because we were having a conversation about it. Because my whole thing was, certain stories we pick, we should have conversations about them on the timeline. So we were having a whole conversation about it on the timeline. And, he's shouting like, who trash person wrote this? Like, all kinds of crazy stuff. And so I jump on the timeline and defend it. I'm like, basically, in so many eloquent words, I'm like, if you don't want to get trash, don't be trash. Like, if you don't, want people writing trash stories about
phone
you.
It in
exactly,
show,
like,
bro.
show up.
Like, do your thing.
People were complaining, like, the writer wasn't the only one. So I think it was in Chicago, too, I think, if I'm not mistaken.
Shout out Chicago.
So long story short, this is happening on Twitter. Now, Puff comes, first of all, I get a phone call, and the phone call was basically like, yo, a lot of profanity. Yo, what's going on? We supposed to be for the artists. We supposed to be for the people. And I got artists calling my phone. A lot of profanity. Calling my phone. Basically like, yo, Lupe hitting me. People hitting me talking about we trashing him or Revolt's trashing him. Like, we don't do that. We support the artists. We give artists a platform. And I'm like, yo, why you tripping on me? I thought we told the truth. I thought that's what we do. I thought we tell the truth. If he was trash, he is trash. We tell the truth.
You hit him with
So
that
so we
Robitussin.
going on the. I thought this was supposed to be like the black box, like public access TV. You talking about we could say what we want, we could do what we want. He's like, yeah, but you can't have me looking crazy out here. You gonna have me look like people know whose network it is. So it was a whole back and forth on the phone.
Man.
And so we get off the phone. I'm thinking, okay, because I refused to take the story down.
Mm-hmm.
So, my thing is like, yo, you put me in this position, like,
Right, I'm
trust
doing my
me to
job.
do what I gotta
Yeah.
do. So he hot, and I'm thinking, okay, that's the end of it. We get off the phone. So then it starts echoing that he's having one of his feelings. Like, different people are like, yo, he's hot, he's tight, he's mad. He's talking about coming to the studio. The studio being the Revolt studio, the live studio. So I'm like, all right, whatever. So they shooting a live show, and at this time I'm like blowing off some steam, but I'm like, it's whatever. Like, whatever he does is whatever.
Uh-huh.
And he comes to the studio, storms into the studio. It's like, where Julian at? Where Julian at? Yo, where he at? Where he at? He finds me, and he literally runs up on me, and he's like, a lot of profanity. It's a lot of profanity. I can't curse on here. But basically, he's like, it had escalated since we last talked. Like, his conversations with the artists or however that was happening had escalated. And he found himself in a position where he felt like he was put in a situation where he had to make good, or he had to do what he had to do. And we ended up just getting into a whole shower match about it in front of people in the staff, like right in the corner, right before you walk into the studio. And we was just going back and forth. And I remember I was so mad that I just stood in that same spot till I went home. I stood in that same spot tight. Like, you know when you watch cartoons and like the whole dude turn red and the smoke come off his head and he's like so tight. And he was like, I hope I ain't ruin your day. He had the nerve to go ham. It was like,
have a good day.
No,
sir.
he's like, yo, I hope I ain't ruin your day. Yeah, because he went to like other levels of other levels of turning up, and we took it there, and I was just like, yo, if you ain't about this truth thing, then stop, talking about it. Don't be going after it. See, it's hard because I can't curse, but nah, he had one of those rampages. I've seen him go on a number of different different moments like that.
Yeah. Well, man, thank you so much, Julian, for sharing that with us, because that's incredible. See, ladies and gentlemen, Julian just got everything over there. He got it all. So please make sure.
I don't even know if an NDA or something has probably blocked me from saying that, but
we're gonna find out relatively soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you once again for tuning into The Alternative with Melvin Taylor.
Shout out to Jelani Hassan who wrote that story. That's who wrote that story.
Jelani Hassan. Shout out to you, Jelani Hassan.
He'll tell you the story.
Bet. We're going to have Jelani on here to give us his side of everything. All right. Remember, you can find me here every week. WHCR 90.3 FM New York, the voice of Harlem. Also on weekends, WLGK Logic Radio. Shout out to all my Chicago people, man. Thank y'all so much for staying tuned with the show. Remember, stay blessed, stay favored, always stay tailored, and I will see y'all next week. Peace and love.